Tonight, would like to dedicate the class in the memory of Yosef ben Regina and Rachel bat Regina and Rahamim ben Eme Alehem HaShalom. Tonight's topic is bringing heavens down to earth. The history of the world, the history of the Jewish people, the mission of creation, the mission of every single one of us, is a story in development that started at the beginning of creation. Started at the beginning of creation from a stone. A stone from which the whole world was created. This is a holy place, a stone that goes all the way to the center of the earth. The place which is called Rabbi, the place of the holy temple. It starts with Adam HaRishon, the first man being created from earth. Chalato shel olam, just like you take the best of your dough and you give that dough to the Kohen, to the priest. God created a whole universe, and after creating this whole universe, He took from the earth and He created man. But contrary to every creation that was created before man, man was created in two steps. You see, God created the world with speech. And therefore, when He created and He said, may there be vegetation, or may there be animal life, or more, may birds fly, and fish multiply. With one word, He created body and soul in one entity. And because it was done in one shot, in one time, therefore there's a perfect balance between the physical and the life force, the spiritual. Man, on the other hand, was not created that way. Man was created, first of all, golam mina adama, literally a piece of mud, piece of earth. From all corners of the earth, God took a little of the earth so that when man leaves this world, the earth will not reject him like a limb that's rejected at the time of a transplant when it feels that it's a strange body. But the earth will be able to welcome and receive man again. So really, man was created without a soul. It's only after Vayitzer Hashem Elokim et Adam, after God created man from the earth, that afterwards it says in the second step, Vayipach be'apav nishmat chaim, and God blew into his nostrils the breath of life. So that's why we live a dichotomy. We live a tremendous stress, so to say. The Talmud of Chagiga says, Shisha dvarim ne'emru b'vnei Adam. 6 things represent the creation of man. In three things we resemble the angels, and in three things we resemble the animals. The angels, like the angels, we can stand upright. Like the angels, we can speak Lashon HaKodesh, we can speak the holy tongue. Like the angels, we have knowledge and power to connect above. Like the animals, we reproduce, we eat and drink, and we relieve ourselves. Having these two core, polar opposites join into one body, it's a very challenging experience. Who am I? Am I the soul? Am I the body? Am I that burning desire of the flame which is inside of me, which is ready to leave everything, leave its wick, in order to just reconnect to its original source and the original fire, the original element of fire? Or am I this physical animal that has these different animalistic instincts that draw me sometimes to places where I'm ashamed to say? What defines me as a person? And is it possible for me to change my nature? We all want to change. I hope so anyways. We all want to transform, to evolve, to elevate ourselves, to have some type of self-mastery. But how do we get there? The path seems to be so tumultuous, so difficult, so challenging, so demanding. So we have to know that there's a process of how we became who we became. The beginning of the world is a world really of a lot of chaos, a lot of deception, a lot of temptation. Just like the first years before the cognitive years of a person experiences his body, experiences pleasure, experiences his relationship with the external world, which is far from being a reality of peace and love. And then man goes on to start discovering a deeper self and starts asking questions. This journey started with somebody which didn't come from such a great family, Avram. Avram, being the son of an idol worshiper, is looking, is asking questions. He doesn't understand why in the world would people respect, idolize things which have no capacity to speak, to move, to grow, and show no sign of life whatsoever. The Midrash tells us that he breaks the statues of his father. Let me venture to say that the Midrash is telling us something a little deeper than that. A statue is something that does not evolve. Avraham said it's impossible, we were made in this world to just be part of the decorum, part of the stones and the birds and the trees, and not evolve. So if something is a statue, if something is static, attained a certain status and is not moving, I'm going to break that. And Avraham decided to become Avraham HaIvri, Avraham the Ivri, which comes from the word Me'ever lanahar. He was over the other side, Ivri, over. He was on one side believing with his belief, and the whole world was on the other side. And he starts asking questions at 3 years old. And it evolves. The questions become deeper, clearer. And he understands that this world, just like you don't fear a king because of his garments, you don't feel the presence of your parent when you live up north because of their garments. You fear the life which is behind the garment. To give you an example, coming from up north, I know what it is to be a child that was completely covered up to the extent where you can't even see the face sometimes of your father because he's all covered up too. But you see him moving. Through his movement, you understand that behind the garments, there's a father. When one looks at the heavens and the earth, he sees the stars, the moon, the sun, the constellations. One is bound to ask himself, but these are the garments of the king. They must be life. They must be a soul. Just like I have a soul, there's a soul that makes everything exist and brings everything in existence and actually activates things. Just like my body hides my soul, the creation hides a much higher purpose, a much higher being. Avraham asked that question. And as Avraham is evolving, he is once tested by a man that thinks he is God himself, a man by the name of Nimrod. We are tested every day by people that think they're God. Gods of the media, gods of the countries, gods of the resources, gods that dominate man and can ruin countries with extraordinary resources. We see the perfect example in Venezuela, which I call the richest, poorest country. Great resources. So people impose themselves. And to stand up and say, you know what, I don't believe in you. World, I do not believe that you are my God. Media, however you want to call it in Spanish. I believe there's something higher. So Avraham did this. Even though he came from a father which was an idol worshipper, he decided to go on a mission. And it came to the extent that when he fought against this whole, I'm God, the world was created for me and I have the authority and whoever is the strongest is the greatest type of theory, he went and he fought it, and that same Nimrod put him in the fire, in a furnace. And he was ready to die for his ideology. In our prayer we say every day that Avram, after this experience, this experiment, this going through the fire, the furnace, coming out alive, he became Avraham with a hey. Hey represents 5 in Hebrew in the numerical value. Hey are the 5 senses. He was able to dominate his 5 senses. Through going through the fire, what happened is, just like when you put metal in the fire and it separates the good from the bad, he was able, through this act of self-sacrifice, to separate himself from his own past. Because you see, in order for us to change, to transform ourselves, to get out of the past, that the past should not become the future, we need to be able to sacrifice ourselves. We need to be able to stand up to ideals, break our statues, break our habits, break the image that the world wants to see us as and the image that we think the world wants to see us as, and become naturally you. The you that God intended when He created the whole world and He brought you to the world. That same world that needs you, with your qualities, your challenges, your experience, etc. So step number 1, am I ready to get out of myself and sacrifice myself for that connection, which is a higher connection, a connection to my soul? And Avraham, at the age of 52, starts a process where he calls upon the name of God. He gets people to realize what's happening. Hey you, what are you doing over there? Why would you want to serve something which is meaningless? Why would you want to put all your time and energy to run after things which you'll never take with you? Come, let's realize that there's a God. And like this, Avraham, after 7 generations where Adam ate from the tree of knowledge and rejected the presence of God which was dwelling on the earth, and then Cain killing his brother, and rejecting that presence of God again, pushing it away to the first heaven, to the second heaven. And for 7 generations, with the generation of the flood and the Tower of Babylonia trying to go against God, the presence of God was pushed away to the 7th heaven. Avraham is the first of 7 shepherds, which is going to bring back down the presence of God. And his son follows, Yitzchak. Yitzchak continues to bring the presence of God by digging wells, by showing that at the depth of everything, if you really believe in it, if you're really ready to make the effort of digging, like you research a treasure, you'll be able to find water, and then you'll never have to worry about your nourishment. Yitzchak does this. He continues. The father, what Avraham started. Avraham represents kindness. Through kindness and openness, just like water flows from a high place to a low place, Avraham welcomed people, brought him in. He gathered the people, explained to them in a logical way what it means to cleave on to God, and that there's a master to this whole universe. And you actually can be a free man and a free woman in the imprisoned world, and not imprisoned in the free world. You have people which are imprisoned in the free world. They're imprisoned in their desires and lust and everything that's offered to them. They just don't know where to turn their head and where to stop and when to become master of oneself. So you can be a free person in an imprisoned world. If you attach yourself to the one which is free from all, free of all limitations, and completely independent of anyone when it comes to his existence, attach yourself to God, speak to Him, think about Him. Attach yourself to Him with your emotions, with your actions. Bring Him in your life. He started that process. Yitzchak did it in another way. He did it with awe and trepidation before God. He was ready to give his life for God. Even at the age of 37, when he finally finds out that he is the offering that Abraham is bringing to God, he's ready to go. Wholeheartedly. And then you have Yaakov. Jacob. Yaakov is very particular. Yaakov is going to go through all the tests of his tricky father-in-law. He's going to study Torah. And after studying Torah and running away from his brother, which wants to kill him, he finally rests. And God makes it that he should rest exactly at the place of the temple. He rests on stones. And at the moment that he rests on these stones become a bed for him. Stones, naturally, are not what we call a recipient in halakha, in Jewish law. There are certain things that are recipients. For example, a chair, if I sit on it, once I sat on it and I used it as a chair, it's called a recipient. It has a purpose. A stone doesn't naturally have a purpose of being a recipient for man sitting or lying on it. But according to Jewish law, as long as you're using it, it does serve a purpose which is higher than itself. Give you an example of this, a little complicated example. According to Jewish law, if a person is not pure and he sits on a chair, after he gets up from the chair, that chair is not pure. But if a person that's not pure sits on a stone, as long as he's sitting on the stone, it's not pure. As soon as he gets up of the stone, since the nature of the stone is not to be a recipient, it goes back to its original state. This information will be interesting for us a little later. Yaakov, there's a question, when exactly did the giving of the Torah start? Did it start at the moment that Avraham started discovering God? Or did it start at the third generation where Yaakov started serving God? One of the commentaries says that it really started with Jacob. You know why? Because Avraham, his father was an idol worshiper, and his father had him, and he did a circumcision, Avraham, on himself when he was 99 years old. But he didn't come from a circumcised father. Which means the connection to God wasn't something natural. Yitzchak, Isaac, had a circumcision at the age of 8 days old, but came from a father that had a circumcision at the age of 99. So there's still a connection to something which is, so to say, connected to concealment. Yaakov is the first one to be born of a father that had a brit, a circumcision at 8 days old, and to have himself a brit, a circumcision at 8 days old. Therefore, Yaakov already separated himself from this world, this type of world that had to do with the physical reality of the world. Therefore, he was already more a recipient to start connecting himself and bringing down the presence of God. We find that there are two individuals which met their wives near a well. Yaakov met his wife near a well. And it says over there that when he saw his wife and they needed to give water to the flock, Yaakov Avinu was a strong man. He was able to push away the stone from over the well. When Moshe Rabbeinu and Moses were looking for a wife, he said, if Yaakov had a good success in finding his wife near the well, I'm going to go next to the well too. And over there he found Tzipporah, the daughter of Yitro. In the story of Moshe, of Moses, there wasn't a stone over the well. And Moses, it says, he did a little more than what Yaakov did. Gam dalo dalalanu. He went and he drew from the well and he gave water. So our sages, in Kabbalah it explains that in the concept of what's called a da'at, which is connection, bonding, there's the deeper bonding and there is the more external bonding. Yaakov represents the level of bonding in an external way. Moshe, represents the level of bonding in a very deep intellectual way where it's absorbed in your intellect and understanding. So now let's explain. Yaakov went through all the challenges and recognized God throughout all the challenges. This was a great process. At the time of Yaakov, you know that Yaakov put on tefillin. But the way he put on tefillin wasn't the way men put on tefillin today, with the skin of an animal and a parchment inside, and so on and so forth. He used to use soft wood, put it around his arm, and he was able to draw the presence of God in the world. And as soon as he was finished, he would throw it away. Which means, just like the story of the stones of Yaakov, as long as I'm using it, it's holy. The moment I'm done with it, I can throw it away. Which means that there is some type of blockage between what happens in the heavens and what happens in the earth. Heavens and earth get married, but they do not really get fully married. We start a process where we're able to connect, but we're not fully connected. Just like the well of Yaakov. I'm going to take off the stone which is covering the well, but I'm not going to give you to drink yet. Moshe Rabbeinu, on the other hand, Moses, he gives to drink. He gives us what? The Torah. Now, what is the Torah? The Torah is the wisdom, the will, the essence, and the depth of God expressed in the Torah. It's as if God is giving you a tool to bond to Him and to become one with Him How? Through knowing His wisdom and His understanding what His will is. So imagine now, if I told you that we're all given the possibility to be able to have godly wisdom, eternal, infinite wisdom, and connect to it. Today, if you see, what are people doing all day? They're looking for wisdom. The problem is they're looking in the wrong place. Google, YouTube, Facebook. They're looking to be able to connect, to have a maximum of wisdom. Some, it's completely superficial, artificial wisdom. And then you have the wisdom, which is a higher level of wisdom. Imagine being able to connect to the wisdom of creation, the wisdom of God, the wisdom of which is above creation. This is what God gives us when He gives Moshe Rabbeinu the Torah to give to us. So basically what happens is there's a process which starts with Avraham Avinu, which is to call upon the name of God, to draw down the presence of God from the first heaven to the second, from the seventh heaven to the sixth, which continues for 7 generations till Moshe Rabbeinu is actually going to draw down the presence of God and suddenly break the blockage there is between heaven and earth and actually bring a piece of heaven in earth. I'd just like to note that Avraham Avinu had a stone, a precious stone around his neck. It says in the Midrash. And whoever looked at that stone would right away be healed. When Avraham Avinu died, God took that stone and hung it under the sun. When Moshe Rabbeinu, when Moses goes to receive the Torah, God gives him 2 tablets which are carved in the stone. From a stone called the Sempirion, a special brilliant stone, a very, very hard stone. The commentaries explain that stone is the same stone that Avraham Avinu had around his neck that God put under the sun. And it grows from the sun. Therefore, the same beginning of Avraham is actually going to be brought down by Moshe. At one difference. What's the difference between the stone of Yaakov that he lies down on and the stone of Moshe? Is that by Yaakov, the stone is only a vessel as long as you use it. By Moshe, the word of God is carved into the stone. Actually, our sages teach us in the Talmud of Shabbat, Nevuv Luchot. The stone was made in such a way that it was carved through and through the 10 Commandments, which were square, which were rectangular, not round. In such a way that you were able to see through and through the Word of God. Not only that, if you would look from one side, you would see the Word of God, I am the Lord your God. If you would look from the other side, you would see the same thing, which doesn't make sense how it's going to go through. There are 2 letters in the Hebrew alphabet which are like a circle and a square, where the inside would have to hang miraculously, the Mem and the Samech, if it's carved through and through. So what happens is that, what did we say? When you carve something in the stone now becomes a vessel, it becomes the Word of God, and the physical stone become completely one. This is what Moshe Rabbeinu did. He brought down the presence of God and brought it to the lowest possible level. You have mankind, You have angels, you have mankind, you have animals. Under that you have vegetable. And after that you have mineral life. And in mineral life you have a stone. It's inanimate. It has no life. It doesn't grow. It doesn't show any sign that God is actually permeating it with existence. And specifically, Luchot ha'even, Luchot ha'berit. The 10 tablets, the 10 commandments are called the tablets which are made of stone, the tablets of the covenant. Moshe Rabbeinu now starts a new generation at the moment that Mount Sinai, the event of Mount Sinai happens. Actually, it's interesting because our sages teach us in the Talmud of Shabbat that everybody that was sick, as the moment of the giving of the Torah, everybody became healthy again. The decree of death that was given to Adam, which was supposed, the first man, which was supposed to live forever, and instead he ate from the tree of knowledge, and therefore his life was given a certain lifespan. That decree of death, at the moment that the Torah came in the world, it was taken away. We were supposed to live forever. If we would not have served the golden calf afterwards, we would have lived forever from that moment on. So basically at Mount Sinai, whatever was started by Yaakov, that process of separating yourself from impurity, what was started by Abraham, which is that stone which everybody looked at and was healed, that healing in the world, that presence in the world, that transformation of the world into a holy place, even in the darkest, most inanimate, lifeless areas of our life. That's what happened at Matan Torah. That's what happened at the giving of the Torah. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu did. And that's why in our parasha we see something incredible. The parasha, which talks about the 10 commandments, carries the name of a convert. Yitro. Why? Not only a convert, the Torah tells us that Yitro was Kohen Midian. He was the priest of Midian. And on the spot, the commentaries explain, he knew every possible idol worship, black magic, sorcery, whatever you want, from the darkest places. He was a master of it. That was his claim to fame. But Yitro, that famous morning in the year 2448 of creation, when the Jewish people came out of Egypt, and the sea split, and the Egyptians drowned, and then Amalek came to fight against the Jewish people, Yitro was having his little coffee, opening the Egyptian Times, going through all the different websites, and everybody was talking about these incredible miracles. The sea split, and the Jewish people went through, and the gold and silver of the gold of the Egyptians was floating out. And Amalek came to fight against the Jewish people. So Rashi on the spot says, Vayishma Yitro, and Yitro heard. What did he hear that wanted him, made him become Jewish? Make him want to cleave onto God and abandon everything. So our sages teach us two things. The splitting of the sea, and the fact that Amalek, the sworn enemy of the Jewish people, came to fight against the Jewish people. Now you can understand that when the Iron Curtain went out, was broken, and everybody was able to leave Russia, and a lot of Jews were able to go to Israel, that suddenly a lot of people said, you know what, I'm Jewish. Of course. There's such a thing, there's no, everybody can come in. an open border policy, we're free to get out, I'm going to go out. So it makes sense that Yitro will want to become Jewish because there's great advantages in becoming Jewish. God split the sea for you. But the Torah tells us no. That was only one reason. There's a second reason which made Yitro want to become Jewish. It's the fact that Amalek fought against the Jewish people. Now, that doesn't make any sense. If anything, if Amalek, after seeing all the great miracles, he has such a chutzpah, such courage and nerve to fight against the Jewish people, maybe he should become himself like an Amalekite. What went through the head of Yitro that day when he opened the Egyptian Times? You see, there are two types of people that watch news. You have the people that watch the news and say, oh, wow, you heard what happened. Oy, oy, oy. Wow, great thing. And then you have the people that watch the news and say, one second, what's the message? Furthermore, what's the message for me? Yitro looked and said, how could it be? At the splitting of the sea, there was such a revelation of God in the world. And in the sea, specifically by the sea, when the Jewish people were going through, they saw such a revelation of godliness. How? How is it possible that somebody would dare go fight against the Jewish people? It's just like if you would say, this room is filled with light. How is it possible there are still corners which have darkness? It must be that it's not been flooded with light in every area. There's an area that's still dark, and therefore the negative forces, therefore Amalek is able to fight against the Jewish people. So Yitro asked himself, which place in the world is missing the light of God? And instead of doing what most people would do, point fingers, when you point a finger at once, you have three fingers pointing at yourself. He looked at himself and said, you know what? If which I know of all the idol worships and all the sorcery, and I know of all these different things, I'm going to abandon this and accept that God and say, Baruch Hashem, bless the name of God. Then God's revelation will be complete in the world. And that's exactly what Yitro did. Because he recognized God. If from the darkest place, from the lowest place, he was able to make the diffusion between heaven and earth, and the lowest level of earth, we should be able even from there to recognize God. And that's what happened at the moment of the giving of the Torah. That should be that the world and holiness can be one. It was thanks to Yitro. So that first original stone, which was nothing but a necklace, a cry out for others to call upon the name of God, to bring back God's presence, that presence of God, that original light, which our sages teach us at the moment that God created the world, Adam, the first man, was able to, with the light of God, which wasn't a physical light, he was able to see from one end of the world to the other. And he didn't have Google Maps or Google Earth. That light which God hid, where did he hide it? He hid it in his Torah. And therefore, when we connect to Torah, the knowledge, the wisdom, the essence, the depth of God, at that moment we connect to that light. And that's why when a Jew doesn't excuse himself for being Jewish, when a Jew is proud of his Judaism, when a Jew is able to connect himself to God and is not ashamed to speak and to say it out and to do it in a proud way, when a Jew elevates himself, at that moment the soul is revealed. And when the soul is revealed, you can take a simple piece of paper, write a few words on it, and that paper is holy. Your actions actually have the power to transform physical matter into something that really matters. By saying a blessing, by going to the mikveh, by putting on tefillin, by eating kosher, by studying, by being here right now at this moment. Together we can experiment, we can experience what it means to be that Avraham, that Moshe, that brings the presence of God and makes this world holy. So therefore, on this very special week, Parashat Yitro, we have to realize that there's no area in our life which is void of God's presence. The first mitzvah is to be fruitful and multiply. God doesn't tell us, you want to be holy and spiritual, go into some ashram or some convent and just separate yourself from the world. No. Judaism, lehavdil, is about bringing God in every area of your life. And how you use your eyes, how you use your mouth to speak, to eat, how you use your ears. You can actually become a master of your own life by connecting above. What doctors can't do, what psychologists and psychiatrists can't do, your connection to Torah and God can do, because it's above all limitations. So Bezrat Hashem, it's an invitation to transform the heart of stone into a heart of flesh, and to realize that every single one of us has this light inside of us. We don't have to reach very far. We just have to make the right click in order to light up our souls and to start making it a habit on a daily basis till the connection is something that we live with every time, every minute, every second of our life. And like this, we'll live above the physical reality of this world in a way that the reality of this world doesn't dominate it. They dominate us, but we dominate it to the service of God. And Bezrat Hashem, with this, let us pray that the ultimate revelation of God with the coming and the revelation of Mashiach will happen very, very soon, just by the fact that we already made a decision to come closer to that godly light. Thank you.